Okay. Well, good morning, Dr. Joe.
Kasia, it's so nice to be with you.
Always a pleasure. And you know what? Today, I would like to do something a little bit different. Normally, we sit with you here and we answer questions from our community, like one by one. But today, actually, I would like to take us on a journey. Actually, you take us on a journey. So, I would like to talk about struggles so many of us face. Anxiety, depression, inner critic, which often I think originates from the most important relationship that we have, which is relationship with ourselves. And so I would like to talk about love and connection with others, what it means to live meaningful life, and how to find peace in the world that is not so peaceful at the moment. And actually, what is possible when each of us actually choose to live in a peaceful way, and how potentially this will have a ripple effect into our families, communities, and maybe even nations. So I want to think about it that this is more than just Q&A that we will have. It's anxiety, love, and peace, a conversation with you, Dr. Joe. So welcome again to
Well, thank you.
think.
Thank you. It sounds like a good story.
Yeah, so let's start with this, Dr. Joe. Why so many of us today feel stuck in a cycle of anxiety, depression, or inner conflict? And especially when life looks so great outside, but inside we struggle.
Yeah, well, it's a great dialogue. It's a great question, and I think a lot of people can relate with this. I'd like to start by just kind of explaining the physiology of what anxiety and depression look like, and how the inner critic actually can get louder in our head
Mhm.
when we're out of balance. So anxiety is a state of readiness. And when we perceive anything that is unpredictable in our life, or we can't control something, or there's a threat or a danger, or we have the perception that things in our life could get worse, a primitive nervous system switches on, and that arousal system causes us to get ready for
Mhm.
whatever is in front of us. And since the brain is a record of the past, it naturally selects probably one of the worst case scenarios you could
Mm.
imagine, because you got to prepare for the worst if you're going to survive, right? So, but it's that thought, it's that image and that emotion, because the person is actually in a state of readiness, turning on a little bit of an arousal that typically is
Mhm.
related to fear, right?
Mhm.
You don't know what's going to happen. There's an anxiety and the brain goes into this state of readiness, and the brain waves go into this kind of elevated high beta state.
Mm.
When you combine that thought and that feeling, that image and emotion, that stimulus and response over and over again, the constant assault on the body of those stress
Mm.
hormones is causing the body to believe it's actually living in that reality in the present moment. And you're conditioning the body to become the mind of fear. And
Mm.
when the body becomes the mind of fear, it's a subconscious program, right? So it's conditioned into the body. And the 5% of our conscious mind, if it's conditioned, has very little control over how we've programmed it subconsciously. And the outcome, of course, is that the body wants to release energy. And in severe cases, it's a panic attack.
Mm.
But for most people, they're just idling at a place where they're ready for anything that could go wrong. And the problem is we get stuck there, and then we need something that external to take to bring
Mm.
down this kind of state, and we're relying on our outer world to change our inner world. Nothing wrong with that, but sooner or later, a person's going to have to really look to see if there's a cause behind that, right?
Mhm.
And if you look at a functional scan, many functional scans, when you look at anxiety, there is this kind of readiness. But many people who have anxiety also have depression. And depression is on the different side of the same coin. It looks very similar on a scan. And what we're doing with depression is many times we're revisiting or is not seeing any really, wonderful things happening in our future. We can't see anything great happening. So we start thinking about the past, and the body loves to bring up the wounds, so it can feel something, right? So,
Mhm.
and you combine that thought and that feeling, that image and that emotion and that stimulus and response, and you're conditioning your body into hopelessness, into powerlessness, into suffering, into pain, into victimization. That's the information chemically that the body is receiving. And you keep doing that, the body doesn't want to get up. The body doesn't
Mhm.
want to think. It doesn't want to do anything. It's tapped of all of its vital resources. And most people, they, when we get in these states, don't think they have any control over
Mhm.
changing that. And that's an argument that I don't want to have, because there are individual cases where people have severe clinical depression and they need all kinds of therapies and
Mhm.
treatments. But for looking at the normal
More.
person,
Mhm.
right? So when the brain is in that elevated aroused state, um, the inner critic, the analytical mind, kind of goes into high gear, and we start analyzing our life, or we try to figure out our life within that emotion. And we discovered from our brain research that actually makes the brain worse. When you
Mhm.
ruminate over your life and you're stuck in the emotion is the past, right? It's a record of the past.
Correct.
We're thinking of the past, the solution will never be there. And we're turning on more and more of those stress hormones by thought alone. And that's driving the brain into this high beta brainwave state.
Mhm.
And we become overly analytical. We get obsessive. We obsess on something. We're constantly obsessing on something because that's what those survival chemicals do. They cause
Mhm.
us to narrow our focus on whatever's the adversity or the challenge is. The problem is that people can't go to sleep at night because their brain is in survival. It's in high beta, and they can't slow their brainwaves down. And chemically speaking, if the survival hormones are switched on, like there's a predator outside the
Mhm.
cave, it's not a time to sleep. And so then all of a sudden you have changes in brain chemistry and
Okay.
less melatonin and more cortisol, and the person gets physiologically out of balance. So I'm telling you all this because I want to answer the question as clearly
Mhm.
as possible. And we're living in a really, really changing world where there's so many uncertainties. There's so many things that we can't predict. The world doesn't look like a safe place any longer, and I think we lose meaning
Mhm.
to life. And so, what I'm hopeful about is that when people actually decide that they can begin to change that, and we have hundreds, if not thousands, of brain scans of people who've overcome anxiety and depression because when they're living in that future reality in the
Mhm.
present moment, or they're siphoning their attention and energy into the past, and their body's believing it's living in that past
Mhm.
experience emotionally, they're not in the present moment. When a person catches themselves going to that worst case scenario and bringing their attention back to the present moment, that's a victory.
Mhm.
And they notice when they're sitting doing the work that they get aroused, or they get anxious, or even impatient or frustrated.
Mhm.
That's when people usually give up. But if you work with your body and you're training it to relax into the unknown, to
Mhm.
relax into the present moment, that's when the body is being reconditioned to a new mind. So we're living in a world where there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of
Mhm.
things that we can't predict. We're using technology more to distract our attention and cause us to think and feel certain ways. I don't know what news channel to believe any longer because everybody's saying something different. So there's a lot of confusion going on,
Mhm.
and then people are strapped when it comes to paying their bills or making their life work, and they're in survival. I mean, that's just it's the fact. So there is another way, and it requires then learning information, learning knowledge, and then really making the choice to actually change it by applying it. And it's not easy in
Mhm.
the beginning because the body is the mind, but We have so much evidence to say that if you stick with it, you could actually reset the baseline
Mhm.
for that anxiety or that stress in the brain, and your perception of the world will change as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And well, it looks like you know, the cure is to really bring ourselves to a present moment, because only here and now we can, well, override so many things, and actually quiet and get quiet, right? So
Hmm.
thank you for that. So now, building on that, so how the healthy relationship with self would look like, and especially when we are in that cycle of anxiety or depression, and the inner critic is like yelling at us, screaming at us, like um how do we tune to self-love and make that louder than anything else?
Hmm. Well, it goes against the chemicals of
Hmm.
stress or survival to open your heart, because to open your heart would you mean you would be vulnerable and be selfless.
Mm.
And to a predator or being in the jungle, that's considering a predator or being in the jungle is not a time to open your heart. And so, if 70% of the time people's thoughts and feelings are derived from the hormones of stress that cause them to think negatively, it makes sense then that when you tell a person to open their heart and begin to feel love, it's a challenge because they have to work on they have to work in a way to stop feeling certain emotions before they can start feeling others. And if the body has been conditioned, it's not very. It takes a lot of effort in the beginning to
Mm.
keep settling the body down. And so there are ways to do that that are highly effective. And we now know that if a person, for example, changes their breathing, when you're
Hmm.
anxious or fearful or angry, your breathing increases rapidly and shallowly, or people who are in fear, they stop breathing, they're frozen, and breathing patterns change, and that's because protective networks are in the brain are switched on. So slowing your breathing down, really slowing your breathing down, and working with your body to relax will help you to convert from the sympathetic fight or flight nervous system to a nervous system of relaxation. Basically, when you're breathing, you're training the animal. You're telling
Hmm.
the body, I know you're revved up, but let's just see if we can slow it down. And there's a battle in the beginning. The body doesn't want to breathe that way. So when you work in slowing your breathing down, you slow your brain waves down from that alarm, aroused state. And if you keep doing it, it'll convert to that other nervous system where you begin to relax. Now, we've seen that happen so many times with people. And then, a technique would be to place your attention on your heart, right? And we have great evidence to show when you place your attention there, there's a very low frequency in the heart that actually
Hmm.
goes up. That's the energy the heart uses to beat. You're giving it life. And you see this kind of elevation of the sympathetic nervous system, and then you see it kind of go down, and you see the sympathetic nervous system
Hmm.
start to go up. There's a little bit of an arousal, and that's energy that's moving
Hmm.
from the body. It's being cascaded up to the brain, and the arousal of that release of energy is causing, in a sense, the body to move into a state of joy or a little bit
Hmm.
of ecstasy or a little bit of bliss. The arousal is not pain, it's not fear, it's not aggression or anger. That's a typical survival. This is more of a sympathetic nervous system driving that energy that's been stored in the body as information back to the brain, and it's kind of euphoric. And it stops in the heart, and the heart then kind of like a catapult, like it begins
Hmm.
to springboard the energy right to the survival center of the brain, and it tells the brain the trauma's over, the stress event is
Hmm.
over. Resets the baseline for that trauma emotionally, and the person all of a sudden feels like they're completely different. Now, the relationship with self, to answer your question, in doing that is so loving to you. It's
Mm.
so important to have that kind of relationship with your body, like an animal, like you're training your horse, you're training your dog. You are training the animal to stay. You are training the animal to not go into survival. And it takes an enormous amount of energy, an enormous amount of awareness to do it. But,
Mm-hmm.
we have people from all walks of life that have had really serious trauma. And when even our military veterans that
Mm-hmm.
are special forces, the Navy SEALs and the Green Berets, you tell them, you open your heart, you reset the baseline for the past events in your life. They get down to business, and that's the moment the body literally moves out of the past into the present moment. And it actually causes the brain to go into this creative state. The relationship you have in overcoming yourself, where you don't need a drug or
Mm-hmm.
a computer program or social media or a television show or whatever to distract you or from that
Mm-hmm.
feeling or to mitigate that feeling. You've actually changed it on your own, and you start realizing that how you manage your attention is how you manage your energy. And people all of a sudden start to catch themselves in not being impatient and being less frustrated and being less judgmental. And that actually feels good to them. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when you start developing this relationship with yourself, where you realize that the only person that those stress hormones actually affect is you. Like they downregulate genes and they rob the body of life. So there's an emergent community of people that are self-regulating. And when they do, they have this greater sense of love for themselves, a greater relationship with themselves, and a greater relationship with other people because now they're more present
Mm-hmm.
and more loving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so taking from this relationship, with ourselves to diving into relationship with others. So let me ask you this. Um, why our closest relationships that we have, with people, with family, why they touch or trigger our deepest wounds, and then how can we shift then into kind of mirror, like a mirror that reflects, hey, this is actually a space for us to grow versus entertaining suffering.
Yeah, this is a great conversation also, and I agree with you. I see every single person in my life as a reflection of me, some aspect of me. And what bonds us in relationships are emotions. And
Hmm.
emotions are created from past experiences, and past experiences also are memories, and memories are neurological networks in your brain. So, for the most part, we're seeing the people and the circumstances in our life through the memory we have of them, and we feel the emotion that keeps us connected to that person. And if we share the same emotions, we share the same information. We can relate with one another. We
Hmm.
can share the same memories. And that works really well in relationships that are constructive. But you could also
Hmm.
have an enemy, and you can feel a lot of hatred. And the stronger the emotion that you feel, the more you give them your attention and energy.
Hmm.
And that's giving your life force, your vital life force to them. So, in a sense, having the ability then to face off with people in our lives by changing our emotional states is what allows us to take our energy or our power back. You
Hmm.
overcome hatred, you no longer pay attention to your enemy. You overcome, judgment, you no longer see your coworker as the same way. And so these are really important things, but the thing with family is that they're a lot like us. There are aspects of ourselves that we see in them that we don't like. And because and we relate with them so closely, it's very easy for us to get our buttons pushed because we're seeing that they're doing certain things and we're actually at the same level of consciousness or the same level of energy or the same emotional state as them. Because if we were in a different emotional state,
Hmm.
say love, we would see them very differently.
Different.
And so
Hmm.
when we're at the same level, they push our buttons because we see a part of ourselves that we don't like, and we haven't truly overcome it. And so, you know, there's nothing wrong with this because I think there's also really high functioning families that have a lot
Hmm.
of love and less judgment and less, envy or whatever, uh, or competition, and they're very healthy. But the people in our lives that we are share the most
Hmm.
experiences with, variations of experiences, we share variation of emotions as well, and family is just the closest circle, both to our experiences and emotions, as well as even nonverbal genetic or
Hmm.
learned behaviors.
Hmm.
Like you see them do certain things and you see yourself do certain things that you don't like. And of course, you're not going to like them because they're reflecting back to you what you don't like about you. So it's really important for everybody in the family to take responsibility um, for their own thoughts and feelings.
And I always remember you saying that, the greatest test we can actually have is just go and visit your family and then see the level of triggers you would have. And that will be a pointing out, okay, this is still something that we need to keep working on continuously, or hopefully one day we just learn that lesson, right? And that will be the evidence that if family doesn't trigger us, but we're not denying it, we just really feel at peace. Well, we graduated. I call it graduating to the next level.
And there's also the element that people change.
Of course.
If you have a relationship with a sister your whole life, and then you move to another country and you don't see your sister as much, and
Mm-hmm.
you go back and you visit your sister, and she's completely different than you remember her, and you're
Mm-hmm.
not conscious of this, but you're liking her better the other way, and you're noticing all the things that are different about her that are no longer the same, and you're
Yeah.
judging her for the fact that
And
she's not the same person, right? So there's all kinds of variations of this,
of course.
but the reflection should drive us
Mm-hmm.
to be more conscious of ourselves. Like, oh, if that's the case, I want to change that about me.
Yeah. Keep working on it. Thank you. So now let's move to, well, definition of success, or how we perceive success in our life. So why do you think so many people that achieve actually success, um, they feel still so empty? So then how do we create a, life of meaning, not just busy?
Yeah. Well, I think we reach a point in our life, if you're truly on the journey, where all of a sudden you can predict the feeling of everything that's going to
Mhm.
happen in your life. And when you can predict the feeling of anything could happen in your life, in a sense, that's the known, right? There's nothing new
Correct.
happening in your life, right?
Hmm.
So it's a really provocative discussion because, for the most part, people who are living their life to create success, they have a vision or a goal or a
Hmm.
dream, right? And they work really hard to arrive at that dream or that vision, but the whole entire time they're experiencing the lack of not having
Hmm.
that vision
Hmm.
emotionally. They're waiting
Hmm.
for the experience to finally happen to produce the emotion to take away the lack of not having
Hmm.
it. That's the game in three-dimensional reality. And some people, when they finally have their experience, they've been so conditioned into lack or so conditioned into that feeling that's nothing's making that feeling go away, and that the success or whatever it is doesn't bring them. The material things never takes away that lack, right? Or that
Hmm.
emptiness or that feeling that doesn't go away. And this is when
Hmm.
the soul, in a very profound way, begins to wake up. I believe that's when
Hmm.
you start asking bigger questions like, who am I? What am I doing? Am I really happy? Do I love my life? What do I not like about it? What do I want to change? These are, some people call this depression, but really it isn't. It's a moment of
Hmm.
deep reflection where all of a sudden you're not so interested in social media. You're not so interested in returning all your texts. You're not so interested in going out to dinner with the same people at the same time, doing the same thing. This is a moment, in eternity where the soul's going, there's got to be something else besides this. And so we've been hypnotized and conditioned into believing what
Mm-hmm.
success looks like based on the programming that we receive from everything from television commercials to Hollywood movies or to movies in general to just the,
Hello?
the way the world a lot of hard to get people. We're all hello.
Yes, I think I'm losing you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Now I can. Now I can. Um, I can see on my end that your connection is now back.
Okay, they're doing construction out there. Okay, I'll just pick up. So people reach a point in their life where they all of a sudden want meaning, and
Mm-hmm.
and and the car and the vacation and the
Mm-hmm.
wardrobe and the facelift and the pedicures and none of that is making that feeling go away.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that's making that feeling go away. And so we've been programmed into what we think success is. But I've sat with billionaires more than once, and they always tell me
Mm-hmm.
they're in agony. They're in deep agony, and they can't enjoy. They're miserable. They can't enjoy life at all. They can't enjoy the sunset, even though they have billions of dollars. Um, they can't find joy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's because something's got to make an about face. Something's got to turn around in order for that to work.
Mm-hmm.
And if a person truly answers the question, who am I, or why am I here, or what am I doing? Am I happy? And they start making changes, they're stepping from the known into the unknown, and their definition of success will change dramatically. And like, for me, many people think success in the beginning is reaching your goals, right? You
Mm-hmm.
reach your
Mm-hmm.
goals, you're
Mm-hmm.
successful, or you're facing a challenge or an adversity in your life, and you gotta make your way and get through it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're able to get over that adversity or overcome it, then you feel successful. You
Mm-hmm.
feel you feel like there's a sense of wholeness or completion or satisfaction. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of success, but
Mm-hmm.
real success is when you have such peace of mind and
Mm-hmm.
peace of heart in what you've created for yourself, that you realize that none of those things do make you happy, that you make you happy. And I think that's a moment you take your power back.
Yeah, that nothing will give you peace. You generate peace, right? That comes from within. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, the last point around that, and many people want to be happy. There's nothing wrong with being happy, but it can't be the kind of happy because you have everything you want. That's not because when you lose everything you want, you're no
Bingo.
longer happy, right? But there's this kind of I don't know how to say it, but it's like a blend of different
Mm-hmm.
elevated emotions. If you have true joy because you feel really great about you, you will be
Mm-hmm.
at peace, right? So they're
Mm-hmm.
kind of the same. And if you're at peace, you're way more present. And if you're way more present, you seem like you're more empowered. And if you're more empowered, you trust more. There's that all kind of amalgamates
Mm-hmm.
together, and they're all variations of the same thing. So I do think it's just not just I want to be happy, like that's going to be solve your problems, but inner peace is just having a combination of all of those things together.
Correct. And I've seen, to your point, many people that were like, oh, now I should be happy. And I'm still not happy because there is still that element of the inside job missing. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I mean, there's so many social cues that are unfortunate for us as human beings. I mean, being popular or being beautiful or being
Hmm.
wealthy really has nothing to do with a true joy or true peace. I can tell you that for sure. The person who's at peace, who's living their life, has a much better life than people who can't find that peace.
Absolutely. Well, so continue on the topic of inner peace. Is that really possible to achieve it, especially now in this world, beautiful world, but nevertheless, world of full stress, uncertainty, pressure? I'm currently in Poland, and I feel it because there's new developments, right, happening politically, and we are just again in the middle, and very close to whatever is happening. So I can sense it just being here in this environment. So is it anything that we can offer to ourselves to cultivate that inner peace when, our borders are at risk?
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, if you asked me this question 10 years ago, I would have had a completely different answer than I have now,
Uh,
because I do agree that there's an enormous amount of uncertainty that's happening. It's ubiquitous. It's happening around the world politically,
mhm,
in the United States, in Canada, in European countries, many European countries, in Australia, in many places right now. There's a revolution
mhm,
of life that's taking place, and I think one of the struggles that many people have, including me, is that I don't feel like that if there's anything I could do is going to make a difference at times. I kind of this kind of existential feeling like,
mhm,
well, it's so there's such an agenda that I don't think that
mhm,
I can do anything
mhm,
to make a difference. You see certain things in you don't feel like you can control any of those things,
mhm,
and if you can't control them, of course, you're going to be uncertain, and you're going to be a little bit vigilant about what's about to happen. So everybody's challenged in their lives right now because of the uncertainty that's taking place in the world. And I have to tell you that it's a challenge for me.
mhm,
And the more I expose myself to information at times, the more I can't believe the way the world is going. And then I don't want to look at that information because I don't want to feel that way, but it's important to know about it. So there's this kind of duality that takes place. And I have periods in my life where I know it's important for me to find peace. I come
mhm,
back from a week-long retreat, and I have 10 days before I leave again. And I have to find peace before I make decisions
mhm,
about 5 years or 4 years from now. I have to find peace when I'm meeting with my executive team, and I have to be in the right place.
mhm,
And I think we have to give ourselves permission to find peace. We don't find it when there's chaos.
mhm,
To find peace in chaos is the ultimate goal, right? But many people, are overstimulated to such a degree that they
mhm,
can't pause and kind of reboot or recalibrate their nervous system. And I think that's one of the things
mhm,
that we can connect the dots with here, because when you're preoccupied with trying to control and predict everything in your life, you're shifting your attention from one person to another thing, to another meeting, to another experience. And the brain is firing, all those neurological networks are firing out of order, one after another. And becomes a house divided against itself.
mhm,
That's incoherence in the brain, and it's a very high frequency. And we have so many great scans to show that you could actually create more wholeness in the brain,
mhm,
and more synchronization, and less modulation and less compartmentalization. The brain starts firing in a more holistic state. That's peace.
mhm,
That
mhm,
feeling that you're having inside of you feels so orderly that you don't want to lose it. So no person or no circumstance in your life, you're going to make a decision that's going to take you from this feeling. And I think it's a trial and error, right? It
mhm,
takes a little bit of practice to get good at this. And then if you can get your heart coherent, and we have thousands of scans to show that people can do it, and when you feel a sense of wholeness in your heart, um, oxytocin levels go up
Hmm.
and nitric oxide levels go up, and there's a physiological change in your body that's robust, that's
Hmm.
pro-life and pro-growth. And if your heart is coherent, it's causing you to feel more gratitude, more love, more patience, more freedom. And that, in a sense, is peace because you're no longer looking for that feeling outside of you. You've kind of found it inside of you. So we see that brain and heart coherence on many levels creates this sense of peace.
I'm so glad you, well, touching on those points, because it feels like, well, first of all, where we put our attention, where we investing our energy. I know that it's difficult. The world captivates us, right? The news captivates us. So it's designed in a way to draw our attention there. Now, but if we understand that we at any point we can train our body to disinvest that energy and keep finding um, peace in something that is so close to us, right? Either well, shutting down the media for a moment, right? Like disconnect, and it's a choice. It becomes a choice, and it's also something that I've seen this trend that people say, well, I can't do anything. Why would I do anything if I can't do anything, right? That hopelessness. But then it's like this personal responsibility. I don't know, maybe that's too hard to say it, but if I can do my best and everybody then contributes doing our best, then we contribute to the collective.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, that's always been my hope with humanity. It's very difficult to reason with a person who's working three jobs and is a single
Correct.
parent,
Correct.
and they have to pay bills and drive their kids to school and to work, and it's very difficult to tell that person to stay
Mhm.
out of survival and stress. And so, or a person who's at war, or victims of war, it's very hard to tell them, oh, just not be in stress and survival. You need to be in stress and survival
Mhm.
in those circumstances. And so there is a natural tendency for us over time in our normal lives,
Mhm.
normal people, like people that are in the middle of the bell curve, to rely on things in our outer environment
Mhm.
to keep us, in a sense, aroused, like
Mhm.
addicted. And
Mhm.
we become addicted to the things that we're doing that produce those arousals, right? And that's when you get hooked, right? Because in a way, you're becoming addicted to the life that is harming you or that you
Mhm.
don't even like. And I think that's why change is so hard, because we cling to the known
Mhm.
when we're in those emotional states because there's better chances of survival. To step into the unknown is a risk. It's a very big risk, and so many people don't make the effort. But people who are truly on the path, and where I think there's, for all the crazy things that's happening in the world right now, and there are
Mhm.
numerous crazy things, and there's so many of them. By the same means, there's great and emergent consciousness that's happening. It may not be as 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 big as I'd like it to be, but there are people that are waking up that are healing themselves, from
Mhm.
teaching themselves how to heal. There are people that are creating abundant lives and creating new businesses and new relationships and having mystical experiences without taking substances
Mhm.
and healing their heart and their mind and their past, in very turbulent situations from the past. So there's an emergent consciousness that I think that's happening, and the way that's happening is exactly what you said. People are working on themselves. If I'm working on myself and I'm truly trying to be responsible for my own emotions and my own thoughts and my own behaviors, and everybody's doing that, you're going to create a new culture. And that's exactly what we discovered in the research that we've done in our week-long retreats. Get a community of people from all walks of life,
Mhm.
90 different countries, 85 different countries. They have their own individual genotype, and genes make
Mhm.
proteins. And at the beginning of the event, there's no correlation. have
Mm-hmm.
them behave in the same way, have them learn the information and think in a different way, and have them actually feel an elevated emotional state. At the end of 7 days, 80% of those people are expressing the same genes and making the same proteins. The flock, the herd, the
Mm-hmm.
tribe. There's an emergent consciousness when we behave in the same way, no different than the flock of birds or the school of fish, that murmuration where there's this kind of emergent consciousness that's being reflected in
Mm-hmm.
everybody's biology, right? So that, in a sense, is a new culture, right? That is a new community that's thinking differently, that's acting differently, and that's feeling differently. And I do believe if you get enough people doing that, if you change enough people, you can change the world. It's just that the odds are so so stacked right now in the world that we live in.
Correct. But if all of us would start to live, like begin to live exactly this way, with clarity, with meaning, peace, love, um, what would we see in families, communities, and even nations?
Well, yeah, it has to start with the self if this is going to work. Well, let's see if I can say this with walking the razor's edge here. Um, the probability that we're seeing the truth of reality is zero.
Hmm.
That's the fact. And I'm not certain that I believe all the information that I'm getting or
Hmm.
receiving. But what I do know is if you get enough people together and they are sincere in who they want to be, I think the challenge is leadership. We need true leaders that actually demonstrate peace, that actually
Hmm.
demonstrate truth, that actually demonstrate a concern for the whole, for
Hmm.
the collective. And I do think there's got to be new information. The information that
Hmm.
we have to begin to process has to be information more than what we're getting from, this in the media and everything else. But I am hopeful right now. I just think that in order for something new to truly emerge, the old has to kind of fall apart. And I think we're seeing this, we're living in such a time of extremes. And the more extreme or polarized something gets, the more it wobbles until
Hmm.
ultimately it breaks. My hope is that if in fact that's the way we have to go, I hope that not everybody runs into survival and makes it about themselves because we'll just have more division in humanity, and that's exactly what you see. There's such a division. I've never lived in a time where
Hmm.
everybody's experiencing their own reality. Nobody really agrees on anything. You may agree to
Hmm.
a certain point, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that person must be getting information from somewhere, right? So you divide a community. If you keep dividing communities and you keep living in stress and you create polarities and whatever that is, there's hundreds of examples of that. You'll keep people divided. You keep them arguing. You keep them, polarized. This left, right, good, bad. All that stuff. I think you'll control them, and the way you
Hmm.
control them is you control their emotions. Because if you can control their emotions, you can control their attention, and that was how you give people the information that could cause them to think in limited ways. So I'm hopeful that if there is in fact a breakdown to create something new, that we come together and we help each other and we support each other and we work together, instead of being divided. And that's the only way that humanity is going to have a chance at this, because there's so many different parts of the world that are, the structure is collapsing, whether it's, you know, political model, the economic model, the educational model. I don't know about Poland, but certainly in other places around the world. The journalistic
Hmm.
model has collapsed. The environment is, who knows. The medical model's not the same. The religious model is being challenged. There's so
Hmm.
many different things that are schisms that are kind of collapsing in a kind of a unique way. And I think people are looking for greater answers and greater solutions because they are more informed than ever. It's just we got to
Hmm.
know what information is relevant. So if there, I do think that if you can demonstrate greatness and you can show people what love does, and you're consistent with that in your life, I think it's natural that human beings want to behave the same way, and it may create another or a few people that are behaving like you, and you keep doing that, and I think there could be the same kind of community effect. I just think it's going to take an enormous amount of change for that to happen.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time and diving with me to the, deep waters of those, well, human questions, and, going from anxiety to self-doubt, love, and meaning, and actually to exploring possibility of peace in this chaotic yet interesting and beautiful world. And maybe important reminder that the change, it doesn't begin somewhere out there, but rather it begins inside of each of us. And one thought, one choice, one new way of being. Um, and my hope for today is that we're not leaving people just with answers, but maybe with a deeper question for themselves. Um, what is the life that I truly want to create? And who do I want to keep choosing to become? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kasha. I hope we helped open some minds and hearts today.
Me too. Thank you. Till next time.
Thank you.